It was the early 1960s, and Boston, a city of cobblestone streets, colonial charm, and tightly knit neighborhoods, was suddenly gripped by terror. Women were locking their doors and windows, mothers were calling daughters to check in, and whispers of a sadistic killer filled the air like smoke. This wasn't a random fear, it was real. Between 1962 and 1964, 13 women were murdered in a chillingly similar fashion. They had been strangled in their homes, sometimes with their own stockings, sometimes with bare hands. Police had no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses, and no leads. The press dubbed the killer the Boston Strangler. Before we dive deeper into the mind of the man believed responsible for this reign of terror, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We explore chilling crimes, deep psychological profiles, and stories that make history echo in the present. The victims, a pattern of pain and mystery. The first confirmed victim was Anna Sleezers, a 55-year-old Latvian immigrant found dead in her apartment on June 14, 1962. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled with the cord from her own bathrobe. Just weeks later, Mary Mullen, 85, was found dead in a similar setting. And then another, and another. What horrified detectives was the pattern. All the victims were women, ranging from 19 to 85. Most lived alone, all were sexually assaulted, and all were strangled. But what sent a ripple of unease through the police force was the staging of the crime scenes. The killer often left the bodies posed grotesquely, as if taunting investigators. The media pounced, fueling panic with front-page headlines. Boston became a city on edge. Women refused to answer their doors. Sales of locks and guard dogs skyrocketed. Detectives worked round the clock, but the killer remained a ghost. Albert DeSalvo, a confession. Too convenient? Then, in 1964, a man named Albert DeSalvo was arrested, but not for murder. He had broken into several women's homes, sexually assaulted them, and fled. He was dubbed the Measuring Man and the Green Man due to his habit of posing as a talent scout or maintenance worker to gain entry into homes. In prison, DeSalvo confessed to fellow inmate George Nassar that he was the Boston Strangler. Nassar, seeing an opportunity, tipped off his lawyer, F. Lee Bailey, who would go on to represent DeSalvo. Bailey arranged for DeSalvo to meet with authorities, and during interviews, DeSalvo gave chillingly accurate details about the murders, details that were never released to the public. He described the layout of apartments, the positions of bodies, and even conversations with victims. It was all too precise to ignore. DeSalvo, by then institutionalized at Bridgewater State Hospital, was never tried for the Strangler murders. Instead, he was sentenced to life in prison for sexual assaults. But here's where it gets twisted. Despite the confession, doubts lingered. Was he really the Strangler? Why would a man confess to being one of the most infamous serial killers in American history without facing murder charges? Was it ego, mental illness, a twisted attempt at legacy? Some detectives remained convinced DeSalvo was the killer, but others, including members of the victims' families, believed something didn't add up. For one, the victims varied significantly in age and race, and the methods used in the killings were not identical. Some were strangled with nylons, others manually. Some were raped, others not. Could one man really be responsible for all 13 murders? Then there was the fact that no physical evidence connected DeSalvo to the crime scenes. No DNA, no fingerprints, just a confession. And even that confession had inconsistencies. In at least 2 cases, DeSalvo described the wrong apartment layout. In others, he confused victims' names. Skeptics began to wonder, was he coached? Could DeSalvo have been fed details by police or attorneys, or was he simply absorbing facts from newspapers and gossip behind prison walls? The DNA breakthrough, a long-awaited answer? For decades, the truth seemed as buried as the victims themselves. But then in 2013, nearly 50 years after the last Boston Strangler murder, science did what detectives could not. New DNA testing technology allowed investigators to test semen found at the scene of Mary Sullivan's murder, the last known victim. The DNA matched Albert DeSalvo's nephew, which allowed for an exhumation. DeSalvo's body was tested directly. The result? A perfect match. The semen found on Mary Sullivan was Albert DeSalvo's. Finally, concrete evidence. After half a century, it confirmed that DeSalvo was present at least one of the crime scenes. But here's the twist. Does it prove he committed all 13 murders? That's where the debate still rages. A killer, or just one of them? Despite the DNA linking DeSalvo to Mary Sullivan, experts argue that the Boston Strangler case may involve more than one perpetrator. Some believe that the original media frenzy created a cover, a perfect opportunity for other predators to mimic the Strangler's methods and strike without suspicion. This theory isn't far-fetched. Serial crimes sometimes spawn copycats, and the disorganized nature of some crime scenes, contrasted with the meticulous nature of others, supports the possibility of multiple killers. Furthermore, the psychological profile of the Boston Strangler, someone who could confidently gain entry to a woman's home, charm her, and then kill with both coldness and ritual, didn't always align with DeSalvo's background. He had a history of violence, yes, but not necessarily murder. So the question remains, was DeSalvo a lone predator or a pawn in something more complex? Cultural impact. Fear that never left. The case of the Boston Strangler did more than terrify a city. It rewrote the American understanding of crime and vulnerability. For the first time, many women realized that home, once a place of safety, could be penetrated. The killer wasn't a monster lurking in an alley. He was someone who knocked, spoke politely, and walked right through the front door. The murders sparked national discussions about sexual violence, women's safety, and the incompetence of police procedures. Boston PD was heavily criticized for its handling of the investigation, leading to changes in how crimes against women were reported and followed up. Hollywood, of course, took notice. In 1968, Tony Curtis played DeSalvo in the film The Boston Strangler, cementing the case in the public's imagination. Documentaries, books, and podcasts have since dissected every aspect of the case, from the killer's psychology to the victim's overlooked stories. And yet, for all the attention, the mystery continues to haunt. Truth, terror, and the shadow of doubt. The Boston Strangler case will likely remain one of the most debated in American criminal history. Albert DeSalvo may have been the killer, or one of them. But for many, the case will always symbolize something larger, the deep human hunger for answers and the maddening complexity of evil. As time marches on, the city has changed, technology has advanced, and the faces of crime have evolved. But in some dimly lit corners of Boston's history, the echo of the Strangler's footsteps still lingers. Thank you for watching this chilling journey into one of the darkest chapters of true crime history. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that shake the past and unsettle the present. Stay safe and stay curious.